Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. My name's Alex Dean. I'm part of the sales team here at NFU Energy. Also on the call today that are going to be speaking are George Richmond from York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority, my colleague Roger Stones from our technical delivery team. There's a couple more people involved who won't be speaking. That's Jenny Bainan and my manager, Steve Jackson. So just a brief introduction about NFU Energy and what we do. So we are an energy consultancy company. We specialise in the farming sector. Trying to move the slides across. Yes, and so as I said, we specialise in the farming sector. We offer a number of different services. Just trying to move the slide on, which seems to be fighting against me. 1 second. So as you can see from this particular slide, we offer a different range of services. Some are compliance work, some are some services we offer from our technical delivery team, so things such as energy efficiency audits, feasibility studies in relation to renewables. So if you're looking to install some form of renewable, be it solar or wind, etc., we can support you with that. The next slide goes a little bit more detail about those services. So we also can support people who are on some of the government-funded schemes, so such as the RHI scheme, for example. As I said a moment ago, we also support customers that are potentially looking at installing some form of renewables. So we work with some preferred installers across the UK that can get you quotations for any form of renewable, which is important in terms of the webinar today. So as part of the application process, you will need to get some quotes for the particular renewable you're thinking of installing. So I'll now pass on to George Richmond from the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority that will go into a little bit more detail about the funding and what you need to do in order to apply.
Thanks, Alex, and good morning, everyone. My name is George Richmond, and I'm the Grow Yorkshire Partnership Officer at the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority. So I lead on food and farming for the Combined Authority. Just to give you an idea of sort of where all of this has come from, and I'm sure a lot of this is probably related to what you've been involved in before. So through the Grow Yorkshire Partnership, which is a partnership of various regional food and farming organisations involved in the farming sector across the region, so NFU, the CLA, the Yorkshire Agricultural Society, we've been able to develop a number of programmes using UK shared prosperity funding to give farms the opportunity to consider ways in which to transition to more low carbon and more potentially efficient systems. So we started with 15 farms and we provided free energy audits to those that enable them to consider ways of cutting emissions but also reducing their energy costs. We then built on that and we developed a wider programme which enabled 32 farms, to consider ways of both cutting emissions through energy and renewable feasibility studies, but actually also considering opportunities to capture carbon and potentially make payments from that, so biodiversity net gain assessments and soil carbon testing. We've also put on a precision agriculture special interest group, which has also enabled farms to consider ways of taking up some of the technology that is available. Sometimes it may seem that it's sort of a bit sci-fi, but actually there is a lot of technology now available that's very feasible and is becoming more and more accessible as well. And we're going to continue that group this year. And as you have joined us today, we are now providing over £400,000 worth of grants for capital works around energy efficiencies and renewable energy installations. And I will go into a bit more detail around that programme shortly, if I can find the arrow for that. Yep. But just to give you a bit of background before that, in terms of why we're taking such an interest in food and farming, some of you may have heard recently that we launched our farm study. This study was commissioned by the Mayor, David Scaife, last year in response to all the challenges that farms have been facing, particularly in our region, in the last few years and the last few months as well. And it was really aimed at looking at what's the state of the farm finances within our region, but also considering what are the key challenges to farms, and then considering a strategic approach that we could take at a combined authority level to look at supporting farms, particularly around improving productivity and potentially getting involved in those wider opportunities within the sector. So the main recommendations were supporting the sharing of best practice on farming, exploring further devolution around food and farming programs, so whether we could deliver more funding rather than central government and focusing on the real priorities of farmers within our region, and then also helping farmers transition to farming systems that are profitable, low carbon and support nature. And this is one of those programs that we think is supporting farmers to transition to new systems through energy that's efficient, but also cutting costs as well. So in terms of the actual program, the business sustainability program is providing applicants, so farms who have undertaken an energy audit or renewable feasibility study within the last 3 years, with grants to put in place recommendations from those audits or feasibility studies. So individual grants are available between £2,000 and £49,950. So this can cover up to 60% of the total project costs, but we do expect that businesses or farms are going to contribute 40% of project costs at the least. At the moment, there is no deadline to apply for this. However, I should caveat, this funding will, of course, run out eventually with the number of applications that we receive. So it's very much a sort of on a rolling basis and first come, first serve. But we also need to make sure that the money is out of the door by February 2026. That means that your project has delivered. So if that's, for example, solar panels on a parlour roof, that those are in place on that roof and everything's done and completed by February 2026. And that's the end of February. But we need to make sure that that's done because we cannot fund anything after March 2026. So if the project runs over or if there is any issues, unfortunately, we cannot fund anything after that date. This funding has come from central government and we are not allowed to extend it after March. So it should be noted that this has to be done before then. So the quicker you put in an application, the quicker that your project can start delivering and being put in place. In terms of what's eligible, essentially it's anything really energy related. So energy efficiency measures, retrofitting, energy system optimization, renewable energy generation. Essentially, the crucial point here is that it should be stuff that's come out of the recommendations of any energy audit you've had, not necessarily done by NFU Energy. I know they're hosting this webinar and thank you for that. But it can be from any sort of reputable energy auditing firm that you've had in the last 3 years audit your farm around energy, or if you've had a renewable feasibility study, we are willing, particularly in relation to farms, to accept feasibility studies as well that shows the potential for emission savings, for cost savings, and also the feasibility of you being able to put in place those measures. So the reason I note this is that this is not a shopping list of sort of just picking and choosing what seems nice. It very much has to come from the recommendations that you've been provided from your audit, the options and activities you choose to apply for. And we do ask that you obviously send us evidence of your audit as well, so we can see how much of the recommendations you've taken on and plan to implement as part of this program. In terms of the eligible costs, we are focused on providing capital costs, covering capital costs. This is only capital funding, so it's very much focused on the installation of the measure that you're putting in place. So whether that is solar panels on roofs or installation, not installation, and essentially the capital costs of that. So we can't fund any sort of consultancy fees or even the project management of the program. That would have to be covered potentially by that 40% of the cost that you are going to be putting into this if you apply. Something also to note is around making sure that you have got approval from the energy network, so the power grid, if you are putting in renewables, making sure that they are approved. Again, we can't sort of fund the applications for that or any sort of planning applications either. They need to be put in place beforehand before you go ahead with this project. If there are any questions, I'm also happy to take those at the end of this webinar, but we do have a website as well. So that covers all sorts of queries on there around the FAQs, and it's under the Business Sustainability Programme on the Mayoral Combined Authority website. And I think just on a final note, as I mentioned earlier, we are planning to do farm carbon audits. These are not out at the moment, but we will be releasing those, hopefully making them available by September 2025. So if you are interested in those, please do just keep an eye on our website or any of our social media channels, and hopefully they will be available to apply to shortly. We will be getting a supplier to deliver those, but we will only be providing 30 at a minimum. So obviously it's also a first come first serve basis, so do make sure you keep an eye out for those if you're interested as well. And that's all from me.
So it's my turn. Can you hear me? Okay. Good. Just takes a little bit of a while for the system to come through. Sorry, while we wait for the system, how do you move the slides forward? I'm battling to, sorry for the technical glitch. How do we move the slides forward?
George was using some buttons in the bottom left corner. Roger, can you use them? If you
Not seeing them,
I'll
sorry.
click on the middle of the screen.
Yeah. Okay. Not seeing. Apologies for the. Nothing's happening. Oh, there's something there. Okay, I see it now.
See it now.
Okay, which one do I push? Sorry.
The arrows on the left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep vanishing.
There you go.
There we go. Sorry about that. Sorry. Okay, so thank you, North Yorkshire Council, the district or the regional council. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm the technical lead of the projects team, and as George mentioned earlier on, we were involved with there was 2 rounds of energy auditing, and the first was was YLEP, so it was we just did this, I think it was 13 energy audits, and that was a pilot, and that was very successful, and it was very focused on the North Yorkshire farmers, and it was very, very successful. And from that we got the project that we've just recently finished, where we looked at the energy, but we also looked at biodiversity net gain and soil carbon, which was also very interesting. We got some pretty good results from that, and from that now this program has now emerged. And I would like to say that we work with a few councils, and I think that the North Yorkshire is probably the most progressive in this way. They are very sort of looking towards getting results, and it's very encouraging to see that sort of thing happening. So as George mentioned earlier on, in order to apply for a grant, you'll see there in the green font there, applicants have to have undertaking some sort of a renewable energy audit or a feasibility study or equivalent. I think that also a quote, George, if you can maybe correct me, I think if you get a quote Is that acceptable, or must it be a quote with a feasibility study?
No, quotes are not accepted as an audit. We do
Okay.
ask for 2 quotes alongside the audit, but no, quotes are not accepted.
Okay. That list that George showed earlier on, we are qualified to help you with the list that you can see over there. We can do energy efficiency and energy system optimization studies for you. We can do renewable energy and energy storage feasibilities. That includes solar, wind, and anaerobic digestion, but any other renewables that you're interested, we can have a look for you. We have some experience with fleet decarbonization. That's mainly to do with electric vehicles and how they perform on farm. And we are connected to people that can, install EV chargers. So we've got some sort of connection in that sort of space. Then we also can do carbon emission reporting, if you like. I know that George has mentioned that there's going to be a program that they initiating in the near future, but we can also do that for you if it's required. We can do some high level, let's call it recommendations. It's not necessarily a detailed study, but if you're interested in, because sometimes when you, for instance, if you need to upgrade your system, your capacity on your network, you need to put a solar system in place, and you need to upgrade your network, or you need to install new equipment, you need to upgrade your network capacity. So we can maybe help you. We can at least advise you or get you a foot in the door with a DNO, so you can start asking the right questions and asking for the right capacity. That's not necessarily applicable to this service, but it does sometimes. We can enable that for you. We can help you get there. Sometimes we have in the last couple of weeks, there have been other energy audits and quotes that have come across our desk, and that is companies external to us, and some of our customers, our farmers, have asked us to have a quick look at those feasibilities or those quotes, just have a quick look to see if they're reasonable before they submit them to the council. And we have helped some of them already, just to have a quick look and say, is this reasonable? Is it worth looking at? And then we've helped with that. So we can do that service for you. And if there's anything else, any other questions, like George said earlier on, feel free to give us a call or contact us, and we'll try and help you. We want to enable this program for you. So let's just go to the next one. I can't see this. Sorry. Really can't see this. Okay. So small. There we go. Okay, so the energy audits that George mentioned earlier on. So what is an energy audit? What does it entail? There are many ways of doing an energy audit, but the most common one that we normally do is when you ask us to do an energy audit or some sort of a study, the first thing we ask for is your energy information. We look for your energy data. So we analyze your existing energy use, and we build a picture of that. We then normally, if it's an energy audit, we go to site, we conduct a site visit. We go and look at all your equipment. We'll spend an hour or two on your site looking at how you operate, what you do, and we know how to train, and we've doing this for quite a while, so we know what sort of opportunities we can start spotting opportunities where we can save energy for you. And we also do this. Renewable studies don't necessarily need a site visit, which saves a little bit on the costs. We can do those desk-based as long as we know where you are and we have enough information, your energy use, so we can do a reasonable study and do some scenarios for you, do the projects. It's quite detailed. Then from that information, we build an inventory normally. So we look at how you use energy. We prioritize what energy, where you use and how you use it. Very often when people want to do energy efficiency, the first thing they want to do is change light bulbs. And sometimes that's useful, but it doesn't always make a big difference to your energy project. You might not see the savings that you're looking for. So very often, for instance, at dairies, we'll look at the refrigeration, we'll look at the hot water, and then look at the various systems, the energy intensive systems, and make recommendations according to that. So then we'll identify those energy saving measures, and then we will do the calculations and estimate your saving potential. That will be your energy, your costs, and we also include the potential carbon dioxide, the carbon equivalent emission savings that you can get from those savings. And then from that, we put it all together and then we will help you prioritize which project you want to pursue so you can bring your energy costs down or save carbon, whatever your priority is. So that is how an energy audit looks. So just to give you a quick look, an idea of how these things work. So the common energy saving systems, I've made a list and shown you some pictures of some of the things that we look at and some of the things that a lot of the things that we found up in Yorkshire. So system optimization is sometimes that is as simple as putting a timer in so that you use your energy during the day instead of at the night, or during the night during the day. So shifting load, in other words. So those are system optimizations. Sometimes sensors, like if you have occupation sensors, which switch lights off when you don't need them, and things also like insulation, putting insulation onto heating vessels or into roofs and that sort of thing. So those are system optimizations. We can help you with that. Very often we do heat recovery. I've mentioned that because we find that a lot in dairies and places where there is refrigeration and need for refrigeration and heat, like in dairies and equivalent food processes. So heat recovery, boiler economizers, and then once again the insulation on those. So that's just a list of some of the system optimization things that we can look at for you, but there's dozens of others. Then there's also the technology solutions. They normally cost a bit more. So you're exchanging something, you're taking one gadget out and putting a new gadget in, or you're optimizing the system with a technology solution. Very often we find variable speed drives. There's a whole variable speed drives, or some call them inverters, or variable frequency drives. And those normally apply to motor loads where there's a variable load. And we can advise you on how to work with that. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, LEDs, light emitting diodes, and occupation sensors, and then some renewables. Not all renewables save energy, but there are cases where they do. So those are just a flavor of what you can do. So if you look at these pictures over here, for instance, this heat recovery system. So this is sometimes used in poultry houses, or it's used in buildings where instead of, especially at winter, where you've got heat coming in, you need to bring fresh air in, and it might be cold out. You don't want to lose that heat. So you use a heat exchanger to preheat the air that's going into your building. So that's a heat exchanger. This is a picture of a heat recovery system from a refrigeration plant. This is a refrigeration. The refrigeration generates heat. We run it through some tanks and collect all that heat into water before it goes up to the condenser and gets vented out. So you reuse the energy that you need. That's a heat recovery system, and this is just a picture of a variable speed drive. It's a very boring box that looks like that, and it changes the speed of motors, and it gives fantastic energy saving opportunities. So that's just some of the technical that you might be looking at. Then just to go on to the renewables, as I mentioned earlier on, solar, wind, and AD, and other natural resources. We first assess what's going on your farm at your geographic site. So for instance, this picture over here shows you, comes actually from an energy audit of a farm. I don't know if it was in Yorkshire, but we assess. So this is the solar resources. The orange line is the amount of solar energy that's available on that particular farm per month. And then this was the wind resources, how the wind speed changes across the month. So you'll see that, for instance, in this case, it might be a good idea to combine solar and wind, because you'll see when the solar is down in the cold months, there's a lot of wind. So if you can get wind, you can get energy free, you can get renewable energy all year round. But if you use your energy only in summer, then you need to put solar. So those are the sort of things that we look at. And this picture here with all the colors is just an example of some of the resources that we use. This is from the Global Wind Atlas. So the Global Wind Atlas has got quite a detailed granularity on the wind resources in your area. And this is a study we did for another farm to see if they could do a wind turbine. So we look at the natural resources. We've got various software systems that we can model your renewables, and they throw out some fairly detailed, it's very detailed. It's based on design engineering. So the feasibility, the renewable feasibility that you get from us, especially the wind and the solar, we'll look at things like the report that I've said here it'll give you a detailed analysis of what you import and what your export potential. We can do various sizes. We'll look at your investment cost, your payback periods, internal rate of return, net present value, and then pretty much your life cycle costing for your renewable project. I've included, and we've taken some of our renewable studies, our feasibility studies. Our customers have actually taken them to the bank to get loans for them, and they've been approved on that ground because they could see it, because the banks like these numbers, and they make financial sense. This is just a picture of so when we talk about energy storage, we often think of batteries, and batteries have a place, saving energy into electric batteries, but saving energy, storing energy is not only batteries. You can do it thermally. You can also store energy as heat. This is an ice bank, just a picture of an ice bank, which dairies know what this is. They will use energy, they will store up energy or excess energy in the form of ice, and there are other ways to do it in the form of heat, where you've got excess heat. Instead of venting it into the atmosphere or putting it back onto the grid, if you've got a solar system, you can actually heat up water, which is cheaper than buying the electricity. So energy storage is not only electric batteries. So, and we will tell you all of these things when we do your study for you. We will tell you what options are available to you, and you can then choose. But if you do have a specific project in mind, and you want us to have a look at that, we'll do that as well. So this is just to sort of give you an idea of our capability and how we can help you. And I think that is all for me. Yes, thank you. Back to you, Alex.
Okay, thanks, guys. So if you look at the top of your screen, you can kind of see there's a Q&A section. So if anyone's got some questions which they'd like answered now, we shall try our very best. So you're more than welcome to ping some questions in there. A little bit of a recap for the things we've gone through and how NFU Energy can assist and support you through this application process. So part of the application, you will need some form of energy audit or feasibility study. Now, we can support you with both of those services. As I mentioned earlier on, we also deal with preferred installers who we've worked with for a number of years. So we know they'll give you sort of a competitive price. There's kind of that trust factor of being linked to ourselves. As George mentioned as part of his section, you will need 2 competitive quotes from 2 different companies for the particular renewable you're thinking of installing. So we can also assist you with that in obtaining those 2 different quotes. So you can see my email address on there, but we will ping out this presentation to you all. You'll also have seen on George's slide, he'd sent a link through to the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority programme, so the exact business sustainability programme link. That's a fantastic page that's got all the detailed information that you could ever wish to imagine on there about the programme and how you can apply and all the kind of finer details. But as Roger said as well, if you would like some support in kind of working through the application process and you've reached a bit of a stumbling block, you're more than welcome to reach out to ourselves and we can try and assist as best. I can't see any questions in the Q&A section, so I assume no one's got any now. But as I said, once we send out a link, you've got our contact information, so please feel free to send us some questions if you have any. So thank you all very much for your time. And we hope to hear from you soon.